and welcome, friends, to another AFK Convos. The time we talked about Hunter, Stasis, and more.
That's a mouthful
Gosh,
title.
I think I already flubbed that, didn't I?
That's fine.
Yeah.
Do it again.
Take two.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, friends. Welcome to AFK Conversations. Let me try that a third time. Hi, friends. Hi. I'm still waking up. Hello. Hi. We're doing this live. Isn't this fun? Hi. Welcome to another AFK Combos, where we talk about Stasis.
It's fine.
I'm falling apart.
It's
I'm
fine.
falling
Here,
apart. This is impossible.
Let me. Hey guys, welcome to AFK Combos, the time we talked about stasis for hunters and more.
Yay!
We did it.
I am Mr. Huckleberry, if you didn't piece that together. The beautiful voice on the other end here, who's saving my buns from being a complete idiot, is Killer Katya,
Hello.
my host and co-host extraordinaire. On today's docket, both two parts of talking about the last little chunk of information they've given us for the like class stasis stuff, and talking about the TWAB, which is packed full of so many things. In the background, you'll see a lovely little video reel to keep your eyeballs occupied. Zombie, hello. But yeah, today is no slouch on information being given, and Bungie is definitely starting to sort of roll the information cart down the hill at this point, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, there's a lot happening.
A lot to
and
go
they're
over.
releasing a lot with each TWAB, so
Mhm.
it's pretty exciting. But let's start with talking about the hunter, because it's super exciting.
There's so much there. Do you want me to like lead? Do you want me to like talk about the basics of what they show us like right out of the gate, and then you can break it down for us a little bit more? Is that all right?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. So the final and third installment in their Stasis class, for us to play around with, this frosty darkness imbued goodness, is the as we've mentioned a few times now, the hunter class here. It's known as the Revenant, and their super is the Silence and Squall, and their little like fun flavor tagline here is Bring the Storm, which I think is awesome. So the really interesting thing about them is they have their. I'm just gonna like break down like their basic abilities. They give us like a whole page to look at here, and their super. They throw two essentially like kumas is what they call them, but they're giant like bladed scythe axe looking things. And we'll get into it a little bit, but their idea behind this subclass in particular is sort of like a ninja, which I'm like, nah, I'm all for it. And it'll get explained a little bit more, like I said here, but their super is in two parts. They throw one Kuma and then another. The first one shatters and sends out a whole wave of stasis. That freezes pretty much anything in like the general AoE vicinity, and then the second one gets thrown out and hits and creates, which I think we sort of talked about this when they first released the trailer too. But like, there's like this whole like cyclone storm thing that happens that seems pretty interesting, and that sort of like moves towards wherever the enemies are, right? And especially if they're already frozen. Does, the damage and the hurt he feels. So, and if they're not frozen, anything caught around that storm is going to be slowed and taken damage and eventually freeze itself. It's not already frozen. And then their big main thing we saw too was, I think it was Bannerfall. We saw that big dome where the two people were frozen in, and then the hunter like throws their what we now know as a shuriken. And it ricochets off of wall, hits a guy, and then hits the other guy, and I think it just like knocks them all out, which was like wild to see. So now we have like the melee is called Withering Blade. So the hunters, the revenants, will throw a shuriken out there, ricocheting off of multiple enemies and surfaces, slowing and damaging anything it hits in the process. So that in of itself is really interesting. So right out of the gate, it's not a roaming super, which I think is interesting, and then its melee is also to me it's reminiscent of like a sentinel throwing shield, which is like very interesting also. So you'll see throughout all of this too that there's a lot of sort of like borrowing for all these subclasses for like different attributes and abilities. So that's the kind of like splashdown flavor that we are given about the Revenant Hunter. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, it looks really cool. Just to kind of like delve a little deeper into it. The cool thing about, and it seems like it's like this for all of the new supers, is that um, you know, you can kind of choose to use your super either offensively or defensively. So, um, you know, for the hunter, it says, you know, you can use it for cover, you can lure enemies inside, you know, it just depends like how you choose to use it. And it's not just like, oh, this is like the one thing it does.
Right.
So with this super, what's really cool is I read them as comma blades. Did you hear it different somewhere? Or?
Is it comma? I might have totally read that absolutely wrong.
Okay.
I know they listed at some point, and this was. I probably said it wrong.
Okay, so when they do their super, this is kind of like the little breakdown they give. You channel stasis towards yourself, and then they form the comma blades, which they use to do a two-pronged attack. And so the super is actually named after the blades. One of the blades is called Silence, and one of them is called Squall, which I think is really cool. So the first blade that you throw, Silence, is when you throw it, it detonates on impact, and so it will freeze enemies in a radius from the center of wherever it hits. And then Squall, once you throw the second one, it embeds itself in a surface or in an enemy, and then it detonates, and it creates a stasis storm, and it will actually track nearby enemies, slowing and damaging them as it makes contact. So it's pretty cool that we get like a stationary plus like tracking for the super. I think that's neat that they're giving us a little bit of both. And then the melee is really cool. I'm actually like excited for this. The Withering Blade, which, like Huck said, it's you throw like shuriken like stars or whatever they are. And so they ricochet off multiple enemies and surfaces, slowing and damaging them as they go along. But if you hit an enemy with 2 of your stars, then they'll instantly freeze. So like if you are like, I gotta freeze this guy now, you can like, you know, go to like hit him twice. So I think it's really cool that it seems like you might have a little bit of control over them. I'm not sure how that's gonna work exactly, but I'm excited to play around with it. Yeah. And I thought it was like really interesting too. They were saying that like when they were coming up with like the archetypes for the Stasis supers, like it was easy to like say, oh, we want like an ice wizard, and everybody kind of like had an idea of what that would be for the warlock, and it was like really easy for them to like come to that. But with the hunter, they said they struggled, and it took them quite a while to finally land on a ninja type like archetype. And I think it's funny because like I don't know, when I look at the hunter, I like immediately think like ninja, so I'm like, why did it take them so long?
Well, you even think about what like Gold Tusk and Quick Fang, right? Where it's the only like differently held like animation, like
you literally look like you're in
anime. Ninja, like, exactly. So it's like, come on now, guys, you already, it's right in front of you. It's right in front of you.
So I think that's exciting that we like officially are like ninjas. And the cool aspect and fragment that they showcased for the hunter, the aspect that they showed, it was called Shatter Dive. And when you activate it midair, you'll descend quickly to the ground and shatter nearby targets on impact. So it kind of like makes me think of like the Phoenix Dive.
Yes,
so instead of like healing when you hit, you're damaging enemies around you. And then the fragment that they showed, it was called Whisper of Hedrons. I don't know if I'm saying that right. But you gain a bonus to your weapon damage after freezing a target with stasis. But it had a -10 strength, like penalty. So I mean, whatever. Who cares about strength?
But I mean, like, what's interesting about this is like this is why I'm like so curious and interested in all of these like aspects, and then the fragments to then further enhance your stuff too. But it's like they oh my goodness. Hello, foe. They offer such an interesting new. They are mods. They are mods, and they are almost like weapon perks. Because like with this, it makes me think like, oh, use your ability, you break a person or an enemy, right? And then like you have like what, maybe rampage going on, like a low or like a swashbuckler. So I'm just like so curious to, like how all these are going to feel and play out. Like I really am like very excited about all of it.
Well, and I think
so.
the fact that like we get a mix and match and really just like customize how we're using our characters, and like as we've seen too, like over the past like couple of seasons, as they've tried to balance out like our stats on our guardians so that they actually matter, because it used to be that like
flat,
you just needed to have this like flat number for like resilience to make sure you wouldn't get one shot in the crucible, but now it's like a lot more
there's a lot of wiggle room in different builds now, where it's like, yes, that marker still stands for resilience, right? But like now it's like, but if you spec high for recovery and you do a lot of mobility, like maybe you can just dive in and out, or maybe just straight mobility and resilience and just like tank through stuff. So
oh, and Foe's in chat here making a really good point. He says, can't wait to see the other supers get updated to match Stasis customization.
Yeah.
And I think that is an awesome thing to think about, because we've had the same supers since the beginning of the game. And it's like, yeah, we did like get other branches that came out of them, and that's been exciting
The middle trees were good additions.
But I think like being able to have more customization over how you want to use your subclass, it opens the door, and it's just like breathing in this like breath of fresh air into something that needs to be kind of like woken up and just freshened up. So I think it's really exciting to think about that. I don't know when that's going to happen, but I'm sure I can't imagine that that's not their end goal. Like, I find it hard to believe that they're gonna like add stasis and it's gonna be the only one that like benefits from the new system. So I think it probably is safe to say and assume that they're gonna like be making all the classes eventually have that customization with the fragments and the aspects. So it is really exciting.
I really do hope, and I have a hard time believing anything other than what you're saying about like that being their like hope and end goal for it. Because like with the system that they show us in these like little vignettes of what to expect with the Titan, the Warlock, and now the Hunter, with how you choose your abilities and then you pick aspects and fragments and then further like mix and match what you do. Like I can't imagine them being like, oh, it's just for stasis, we're moving away from like I
don't want to work on this anymore. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that would be it'd be fucking insane to me. And like
the only way I could see them saying that is like if they were like, hey, we're gonna go like completely work over the old like subclasses and just like completely refresh them. But I find it hard to believe that they would do that, because like they kind of are like the basis of like the classes, like you can't imagine like a Titan without shoulder charge or like thunder strike, and like
a Warlock honestly without like the melees that they have either, like their supers. So I think what is interesting to make note here too, and I just thought about it, but like as far as we know, there's only one super per class for stasis, right? While
so far,
in the other ones that we have between Solar Arc and Void, each class has different variations of that. So I wonder too if it'll be even more like if they do bring this kind of like modular ability to everything, that if they do that, then like how would you then have like I'm just like visualizing, like would you then pick like, oh, I want this super instead of the super, and like I don't know, it's just an interesting thought, like how they would go
but
about
keeping like the fragments and the aspects
like how would that
Oh yeah, that's interesting, because like I guess I kind of imagined it in my mind that like each super would have aspects and fragments specifically like for it, but I guess when you look at the like images, the aspects will say like stasis aspect or whatever, so like they probably are gonna be
that's true they do say
they're gonna be like for like oh my gosh, what is the word I'm looking for? The subclass, oh my god,
Is
the
that
burn, what do we call it?
The elements?
The element, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna be element-specific fragments is kind of what I see happening. So.
Literally just upon, like, as soon as you said, like, oh, stasis fragment, like, I look over on the screen, it's like, stasis fragment. You know, it's
I
like...
planned that because I'm a professional.
Big brain plays right there. I really hope that's the case. That's definitely my wish. And like you're saying, Fo, too, like, it would absolutely give... already with this, like, is the system we have good? It's fine. It's workable. We've had it for, what, almost... We're going into the 4th year now. But, like, I think this really does, like you're saying, Phil, like, give us a lot more depth to work with. It
and more to chase.
Yeah.
And it's not like the seasonal like currency where once you get max light,
it's
you're
gone.
like, I don't know what to do
it's
now.
Arbitrary.
You know?
Yeah.
Like I feel like customizing builds and like messing with mods is something that never gets old, because even when there is like kind of like downtime in the game where, you know, you might be like max light or like whatever, you're sick of whatever
the established meta,
like,
the like
like
day in day out,
when you're like, oh, what do I do when I get on Destiny, you're like, you know what, I'm gonna like just go test out mod builds, and that's literally like all you do for the night. Like that is exciting for some people. Like that's a really good time. And like I just think it's nice that they're giving us more of the ability to control how and what we want to use our guardians for and the way that we want to play. Because I mean, when you look at the weapons and all of the random rolls and the possibilities, like, you know, you can really customize your loadout of weapons to your liking, because we do have so many options with the rolls on the guns. But I think like adding this extra to our abilities and our supers is like just such a great move on their part, because then you don't feel like this cookie cutter character with then customizable weapons. You now feel like, no, I specifically have this for my hunter because I like to do these things, which I feel like they've done with having the you know, having the points of our stats like matter more. Like I know, like me personally, when I started playing Hunter, I never paid attention to like what my agility was, because I didn't care, because whatever, nobody needed agility. I just needed to make sure my resilience was at like whatever number, so that, like I said, I didn't get killed in Crucible in 2 shots. But like now it's like every time I'm like hunting for gear, it's like I need high agility. If I don't have 100 agility, I can't dodge every 9 seconds. So why do I want this piece of gear? And that has added like another layer for me of when I'm hunting for gear, I now actually pay attention to the stats, where like before it was just like it didn't matter. And so I just feel like all of these moves they're making has made it so that, you know, you really get to take pride in what you're doing with your character and like your play style.
I feel like it naturally drives the game into this like RPG place, right? Where it's like you are going out and doing activities, and like, is there any this is another thing that we can talk about another time too, but like with the way they've introduced, as I will say, menagerie like things, menagerie being that event that came to us in Opulence, where you could literally punch in some runes, and then you do the activities, you fight the boss, and at the end the chest you got had a like specifically curated version of what you're looking for, either it being the weapon that you wanted, so wink wink nudge nudge to you beloved, but you could like roll for that weapon and then roll for that masterwork and like specify it that much. And like same with the armor, you could like specify the armor and then specify like what element it is now, and then you could specify like what I think what stat you wanted to go with as well.
Well, and like the nice thing about that activity was like, you know, I think a big gripe for players in Destiny is like, oh, there's not enough to chase. But like when you look at it from the perspective of someone who only plays like a couple nights a week, there's too much to chase. And like with the chance of rolls for things, that also like just increases, you know, your chance of being disappointed with what you get, because there's so many rolls on like one specific weapon. So, you know, I think Menagerie was like a great move, because it made it so that people were like, look, I only have like a few hours like a week, and I'm gonna like put my time into Menagerie, and I'm gonna hunt for like this specific weapon because I know I'm gonna enjoy that weapon. And
it gave a breath of control to
and it felt like an achievable goal instead of just like stabbing into the dark and hoping that like whatever you want falls in your lap, because that's what it feels like a lot of time with like, you know, when Iron Banner comes along and stuff. It's like, sure, you know, you're getting stuff from like a specific loot pool and it's not huge, but at the same time when you start thinking about it, it is huge because there's so many different roles and like it just becomes this like armor, man, like that's a lot. And I think like the Umbral system kind of is like that happy in between,
right? And that's
like,
that was the point. Is they've done well to stick with and try and iterate upon the menagerie mechanic of like getting loot and stuff. And so
I just think that the Umbral system had some weird quirks in it, because like even when you like choose like I want gear that is agility gear, like I would get that and it wouldn't actually be like
agility also
wouldn't be the highest like stat roll. And so I think there's been just some like, of course they're gonna have to iron out like new systems and figure out how to make that work, but I think that if anything it shows that they're trying to find a system that works, that benefits all types of players within the space, because you know Bungie really has made a push to include new light players. Hi Brad. And so you know, I feel like coming in as a new player and like just being like, okay, well here's all these different guns you can get, go get them, Tiger, like that's a lot to have to like, take on. So
drinking from the fire hose is a phrase that comes to mind. So
before we get too far away from it though, I do want to talk about the grenades that they finally explained the new grenades for everything. So do you want to go over that, or you want me to?
No, I will. I'll share with what they have given us, and then we can talk about it. So the first grenade out of 3 that they talk about is the glacier grenade. So when it hits the ground, and you've seen it in some of the clips and stuff that we're playing here, and if you've watched some of the trailers, but it's the one where you throw it and then it creates these giant like crystal pillars that just like shoot out of whatever surface it hits. Or am I reading that wrong? Oh, I am reading that wrong. No. Wait. Oh my god, I jumped ahead in my place. No. I had it right, sorry. So it creates these giant crystals. These grenades have multiple uses. Oh god, I read that in a different way than they intended. They're just saying it can be used to create cover. You can use it to jump off of like this in this shot literally right now. You can then also instantly, I think, freeze people if it hits them, and then
it encases enemies.
Yeah. And then the other part of that is when you shoot it and explode this big old stasis crystals, it has a big like AoE burst damage hurty feel thing going on for it. The next grenade up is the cold snap. So this one's also pretty interesting. When this one hits the ground, it's immediately going to seek out targets up to 3, and it just instantly freezes them, which I think is fascinating.
It's what's interesting to me is that it chooses the closest target. So to me, it seems like you might not have the most control over that, because like I imagine like in a situation where you're just being rushed by like a bunch of enemies, like it's gonna determine what it says is the closest target.
Right.
So, well, but I still think like I'm not saying like, oh, this is gonna suck, but I just think like for utility purposes, it's gonna be interesting how it determines like
how it gets used and all that. It strikes me like skip grenades or like Axion bolts, right? Where it's like they immediately like they're launched, they're activated, like seek and destroy you, and they like just randomly pick whatever's close to their launch point.
I think what's interesting is because it says it goes out like in a wave, I think then that means like to me I was thinking like, oh, maybe it hits one and then bounces back to another and then whatever. Like no, I think it's just continuing forward, so it'll get the first closest guy, the second.
It's like a tremor worm, but freezy. And then the last grenade here that they talk about here is the Dusk Field grenade. This is the one, honestly, just a little aside, I'm the most excited about. Dusk Field grenades create a powerful stasis field that sucks enemies into them when forming. Once an enemy is caught inside, they'll be slowed, and if unable to make it out in time, frozen in place. You'll see a shot at some point in all this footage that we have here, courtesy of Bungie. Thank you. But it's Bannerfall, and you'll see the hunter throw the shuriken. But in that process, you see the angle of it bouncing off the walls. I think that big orby field is actually that dusk field grenade. And
You sure it's not Midtown? Are you dreaming?
no, the map is Midtown. What did I say, Bannerfall?
You keep saying Bannerfall.
I'm a fool. It's fine. It's fine.
It does. It looks so cool though, because like you see them like do the grenade field and then like do their melee attack with like the stars, and like we said before, if you hit an enemy with 2 of the same stars,
Right
like,
here.
so if they're caught in a stasis field slower and like they need to hurry get out of there, you hit them with like your melee, which then slows them some more.
Yeah.
They're having an even harder time of getting out of there. Like it just
To me, it's a new version of the Wombo combo, and that delights me.
some good times. So what's cool about those grenades too is that that's for all classes. It's not just specific to each one, which we before thought they were, but we now know they're not. So we all are gonna have access to those different grenades.
Literally,
which is really cool.
at the top of that grenade section, this is literally a quote from what they've said. Apart from the intrinsic stasis abilities that will be a part, of each subclass, all Guardian classes using stasis will have their choice of a variety of stasis grenades to use in combat. And then so those 3 grenades, it's not like, oh, well, the Warlock gets this, the Titan gets that, the Hunter gets that. All 3 get to pick from those 3 grenades, which I think, to me, like, I love that there's variety in grenades. It just feels so bad living our Hunter life, where it's like one of our best grenades. Like, Incendiary is great, Void is great. Honestly, don't sleep on spike grenades. Like, we have some grenades that are good. Skips with Shinobis are fine, but that's exotic enhanced. Point being, pulse grenades, lightning grenades, storm grenades. What else we got here? Fucking suppressor grenades. It's Tether 2.0. Like,
which we should have suppressor grenades. Let's be honest.
Look, let's not get. I think we're both teetering into like assault rant about Hunter grenades.
It's true.
But like,
I'm about to get mad. Why are you bringing this up?
Handheld supernova as well. Like, who? Whatever. Stop. Bro. I'm pumping the brakes. It's good that there is a universal selection. Where I think this has been kind of the low-key discussion. It's like, what, like, apart from the supers, like, what really is it that like separates one class from another?
The
and, like,
upper hand, yeah.
Right, and
yeah,
really is like the identity, and it's like, well, that's where like the abilities come into play. But it's like, I think what's interesting and smart about how they've done this is each class and then subsequent stasis subclass has a defining super and defining melee ability. But like the grenades in large part like don't define, and they shouldn't define, like the subclass. That's my hot take. And like I think that's what's good about how the grenades are universal between the 3 subclasses now for this in being stasis, because you're not like being like, oh, like I really want to use this grenade, but I like playing this class, so now my hand's been forced to go play. You know what I mean? Like it leaves the door open is the fucking point I'm trying to make. And
yeah.
so,
Well, and one thing I like about it too, if you kind of like, I know everybody plays Destiny differently, but like, when I first started playing, I played like just Warlock for the longest time, and so like I didn't know what other like classes grenades specifically did to me. I knew they hurt, but like I wasn't, I didn't play those classes, so like I don't know like what the hidden like benefits of using whatever is, and so. But the same thing with Hunter. Then like when I switched to Hunter, now it's like when they've added all this like other stuff for the other classes, I still am like sometimes like, what does this grenade do to me again? Like why? Why did they choose this? Like, of course I know now, like after having them used against me so much, but like I just think it's interesting that we're all going to get the same grenade, so we're all going to understand how they work, and there's not going to be these like surprises of like, oh, hey, I guess I should have like run up on what the Titan had so that I wouldn't die to this, It's
right.
Like, no, like I have the same thing. I understand how it works. I know like the positioning. I know like how far away I should be. Like I know where I should, aim to like have this impact on the ground. I just think
Right.
it's cool to
Right.
give that to everybody, because again, it comes down to like whether you don't have the time to play all 3 characters or if you just prefer to play one. Like,
It's just a
you know,
lot of information to keep track of. And Bungie
well, and
does a good
yeah,
job of packaging that well, but even still.
but I also feel like you shouldn't be forced to have to play like, 3 characters just to like be able to keep up to stay like relevant with what's going on.
Right,
Like
right.
that's a lot of upkeep. Like, come on, please.
It is. No, it absolutely is.
So, I really like the direction they're moving. I feel like they're really hearing what the hardcore fans are saying, but they're also taking into consideration, fans that maybe don't have as much time or new players are going to be dealing with when they, join the fray. So I'm really excited, and I just really like. I'm kind of gushing over like their moves that they've been making, because I just feel like they've been such great decisions, and I'm sure we're gonna have ups and downs just like any game does, but I feel so much more positive about our current path than I have in a while with this game. So. And I think how much they're sharing is also like a really big deal, because in the past, like, we maybe get a heads up about things like
They're
a week before.
very
things
cagey
drop.
and very clandestine about things sometimes.
Yeah.
So
So I like they've been like, hey guys, like, guess what? We're gonna tell you more things, and it's not just like 2 bullet points. It's like, no, here, read this giant page of information.
Right.
So. Which, speaking of that, we should definitely talk about the TWAB.
Yeah. So exciting changes. I'm sure they'll be telling us more. We'll get into some of the changes that are even coming with the game itself, not just the new things that are coming in this TWAB. And then I'm excited. I'm also very excited. It's a very clear direction, and it feels palatable without being overwhelming, and it like teases us off for just good healthy change. So.
Agreed.
Yeah, so this TWAB is a nutty. Do we want to come back to the quest later? I think we should. I think we can come back to it.
Yeah.
There's a new sidearm. There's a new quest. We can talk about it later if we have time for it. That's not. If you're playing the game, you can go and do it. It's very self-explanatory, but we'll run through it later if we have time. So. Let's see here. Let's see. Oh yeah, it's Bungie's, or it's Destiny's. Let me correct that. It was Destiny's birthday. Yesterday? I think it was. Maybe the day before.
I think it was 9/9, wasn't it?
I think it was. So that was exciting. They had like a whole little blurb about it. They gave like a really interesting like cake recipe. Like a dark chocolate cherry cake. It seemed absolutely lethal. But that was cool. They also gave like a little like free like chibi cartoon like backdrop for it, which is it's pretty cool. It's neat. I like it. They sort of gave also like a general breakdown of like what is happening with Stasis, and I think that's something important to go over too, because we keep talking about it, and like we're sharing like what we know and what they share with us here. But they gave like a little splash screen here that kind of went over, like, once again, sort of like you were talking about, Katya, is like, oh, what does this grenade do? Like, how do I interact with it? What do I need to expect? Like, what do I need to be aware of? This is what you need to be aware of with Stasis, and I'll just kind of run through it a little bit, and once again, we can sort of break it down. But we're given sort of like the 2 main aspects behind Stasis, which is the crystals, which we talked about in different ways, and then the Stasis field. So the crystals, like we said, literally creates a physical structure that you can either hide behind, jump off of, or shoot. You can encase your enemies with it. You can also then shoot and destroy the crystals, and it creates like a pretty, what I'm assuming is nasty little like AoE pocket burst from those. And different supers, different abilities, different grenades will create these crystals. The other part is the Stasis field. So it is that sphere that we saw with the grenade, and I think a few other, once again, abilities and supers have a similar effect here. But it creates this field, this pocket, where things in it will slowly become slowed, and slowly crystals will build up to inevitably immobilize and freeze, and then create the people or the enemies that you're fighting in a crystal case. So those are like the two new power forms that we're getting, and then the subsequent effects from that. We're getting a slow effect, a freeze effect, and then what shatter is. And once again, they kind of like touch on themselves and explain themselves a little bit in the ways that you interact with stuff. But the slow effect, and this is like literally what the actual in-game terms, right? Like it's not just like, playing D&D, it's like, oh, I'm gonna cast this lightning strike, and like you can have all the fun flavor text, but like what the actual mechanical effects of like, let me roll D10 now. This is what it does. So slow greatly reduces enemy movement speed, weapon handling, accuracy, and then your ability to regen. So if you're trapped in a slow effect, a field effect, is how I read it. It has all of that. So like everything is just like going to be difficult to operate in that space.
It almost sounds like tether, but
yes.
like a like baby-ish tether, because it doesn't take away your like ability, I don't think it takes.
It doesn't suppress you, but it like halts. So say you've thrown your grenade and you've built it back up and you're almost there, but then you get caught in this field. What it sounds like is that's going to be like cut to like 0.25% regen if you're caught in this field. So you're not going to like tip that over to then maybe win back that fight. Like you're caught in that.
I wonder though, like if you get, this is just me, like considering if you get caught, if you have like your dodge up when you're in a slow field, like if you're able to slowly dodge out, or if it like resets your like abilities and they start back at like 0. Like I'm just curious how it's all gonna work.
Yeah, I'd be curious about that too, how I read it. Because once again, I would take that as like being like, oh, you got hit by a suppressor grenade, you got tagged by tether, you got hit by something
I
that
don't
halts
think
you.
it's gonna reset it. But...
So I think if you are close enough, I think you can dodge out of it. I think also though, like you could probably even Icarus dodge out of it. You warlock fiends out there. But I think with that too, how I read that is your movement is hampered too. So I don't think you're going to be able to dodge as far or Icarus dash as far. So I think that might be something to. I'm very curious about. Once again, it just gets the mind running with like how's this going to play, and then we'll go over the next two here. So freeze is the next like effect up to bat here. Freeze and immobilize foes in a solid stasis crystals. The effect wears off slowly over time, but if affected players are willing to take some damage in the process, they can break out by shattering the crystals around them. So
interesting.
What that sounds like to me is you can, if you get encased, say it's PvP, or maybe even like, while we're doing PvE, say there's enemies that have harnessed stasis as well. We don't know. Just hypothesizing here. If you get frozen solid, it sounds like you can essentially like the equivalent of, wiggling your joystick back and forth, or maybe clicking your mouse keys or something like that for a PC. Who knows?
Either way, you can bust out
There's
of it.
a means of getting free, and I think that comes at a penalty of probably like taking some like burst damage from like breaking the crystals, right? Like that's the whole point of like shattering crystals is like it's gonna hurt, right? So that's an interesting thing. And the last one up to bat is shatter, which is kind of what we're talking about here. Obliterate those who seek to destroy you. With enough direct damage, present enemies in stasis crystals will shatter, creating devastating stasis shrapnel explosion, damaging those nearby. Sorry, I read that a little strange. But I'm trying. It is a curious thing to me because it then like adds just further means of play where it's like you could throw the crystal wall grenade down, right? And then you could just like, walk up to it, pump it full of like a shotgun, explode it, right? And then like, not only have you created cover, but now you've also created like a like time bomb, essentially. You know what I mean? Like it just opens up so many interesting means of navigating any battlefield. So
it's gonna be really cool.
I'm looking forward. It's just all very exciting.
I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I am super behind this week, and Huck did a lot of the like work for the swab, and I've like kind of gone through it, but not nearly as deeply as he has.
It's fine.
So I might let you kind of just take
Carry
lead
it from
here, and
here.
I'll just comment as necessary.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, comments are always necessary, so there's that. So moving along, we're just kind of chopping through the 12, like we said. They touch back on how they're going to make changes to the Eververse, and that was, I think, something they mentioned in what was it? It was in May.
It was at some point.
So it was earlier in like the summer, way early in the summer. They talked about how they're readjusting everything. It's worth going back to because they're holding to how all these changes are going to be affecting it. And essentially, we'll explain a little bit as we go here too, but they're taking things out of the Eververse and putting it in the game. So
Thank goodness.
good. Yay, we're happy about this.
Get out of here, Eververse.
Honestly, go find a new job, Tess. If you got a new job, I'm totally fine. So they mention all that because they get into what they're going to do with kind of like armor and new pursuit weapons. So this is what's happening on November 10th with some of those changes. They're getting a new set of armor for the core playlist. So core playlist being Strikes, Crucible, and Gambit. There's going to be a set each year for those game modes. They will be specific to those activities and how they're like stylized and look. They get like a little screenshot for it, and it's interesting because like the armor looks very similar, honestly, from like class to class. Yes, and Bread, that is a good point. Those sets will have ornaments tied to them, as far as I can read it. So let's see.
It seems like to me that it's like initially you choose which of the like core playlists you want to use to earn the armor, but then like you can go back and earn each one, so you like have potentially 3 different ornaments.
So
or is it you only get one?
No. The way I read it
Okay.
is that it largely is when you play those activities through either doing the weekly bounties, through turning in tokens and getting packages. I think you can see it. Yeah. So this armor can be earned by completing activities or through vendor breakups. That's how you get it. Weekly challenges are also being updated to offer avenues for players to earn higher stat packages for these armor sets. So it seems like if you go and live in these activities and do, like, say you turn in tokens and you've ranked up with Shax, like, you're going to get the armor like we do. So that's going to stay. But also, while you're doing strikes, while you're doing gambit matches, while you're doing control or clash.
So you can be earning them all at the same time.
Yes, so it is now.
Okay.
This will be the pool of armor. It's much like the system we have now. Is how I read it.
So you're rewarded for playing the game types, pretty much.
Yes.
With different ornaments.
But now there's like a very. It's going to be an updated and like specific set. And then if you do, how I read it, the weekly bounties that we have for them, they're calling them challenges, which is maybe the language that they're shifting to, which is actually kind of an interesting subtle note to make of. That's how you get, like, you know, say if you do activities, you'll get like a 58, maybe a 61. If you do the weeklies, that to me reads like, oh, that's where you get, like, you know, the mid 60s or higher stat gear kind of stuff.
Oh, interesting. Oh.
So I don't think there's, so to roll back a little bit on what we said, I think each activities has its own specific armor set that I guess you can think of it in this way. It's pre-ornamented, right? Like it already looks a specific way. And for now, I'm sure the ornament system is still going to be there, so you can dress it up the way you want to. And I know they've mentioned too that sometime this year they're going to introduce the transmog system, which I am very excited for. I think it's going to be great. But that's the armor, and that's what to expect for this upcoming year, and that's launching right at Beyond Light, the armor stuff. So like, go play Gambit, get your Gambit set, go play Strikes, get your Strike set, go live life and shoot mans in Crucible, and get your Crucible set. With that though, they're taking a very similar flavor with reintroducing Pursuit Weapon, which looking at the picture that they gave us here makes me very excited. I am kind of dreading and a little bit upset because all the snipers that I love and hold dear are being sunset, and so you were so mean to me. They're reintroducing pursuit weapons, and the short of the long of it here is you are given a quest avenue, once again, through the core activities, Crucible, Gambit, Strikes, or Vanguard, I should say. And you are given a quest avenue through either three means, and through completing that, you get the pursuit weapon. Further from that, though, if you care for an ornament on that weapon, you can then do the quest in the other core playlist activity that you did not do. So say, for example, you love Crucible. This is my avenue. I'm projecting a little bit here. I plan on doing the Crucible version for this weapon, living in Crucible, completing the quest, getting the weapon that way. Once you've gotten the weapon, you can then go and do Gambit and get the Gambit ornament for the weapon. And then you can do the Strikes and then get the Strike ornament for that weapon. So no matter which way you want to go and play the game, you can get the pursuit weapon, and then if you're like, oh, I love this thing, I want to further customize it, like, oh, but I really like the way the Gambit version looks, go and then play Gambit and you get the ornament for it. So it, once again, is like opening the door to like explore and play the game while also rewarding you for your time.
It's also a lot like the armor sets, the only difference being that you can't like dip into all three activities at once to open it, because with the weapon specifically it says like whatever activity you choose like to pursue it in, you're locked into that activity.
You have to see that quest through.
That's the only way to progress it, is to like keep doing that activity. So I think that's fine.
Choose
I think for a pursuit weapon
wisely.
It makes sense, you know.
Yeah.
So I think choose what you like to do in the game, and like, I mean, if you're like really stuck on like a specific ornament, then I guess like, and you hate that activity, do that, but like, why? So whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on.
Really, it's just like, go do what you want to do, see that through, and then if you want the other ornaments, go to the other things. So
it's just another thing to add to like their growing list of like further customization and customizing of like our characters and our looks and our abilities and everything. So it's just all kind of like feeding into itself and like crossing over to like every part of the game, which is pretty cool. And we don't have oh, sorry, what are you saying?
Well, I was gonna say it also further offers shoot, I had a point, never mind, forget it.
Okay,
it's fine.
I wanted to say we don't have like a ton of time left, and I know there's still like quite a chunk here that they talk about, but like of between Crucible, Strikes, and Gambit.
Yeah, we're on the tail end. I think we're doing okay. I think we can sort of push through it. Do you want me to like tee it up and then you can run it through, or how do you feel?
Sure.
Okay. So with this, they kind of touch back in this back half. This is pretty much the last big chunk that we should all be concerned with this week's TWAB and like huge information pool. But they touch back on what is changing in our selectable activities. So in the directory that we have, so if you hold that back button, if you hit whatever you have at hotkey to, this is what you'll end up seeing for these different mainstay core activities, right? So that's between Crucible, which we'll talk about here in a second, Strikes, and then also Gambit. And then we'll talk about the changes that are happening to Gambit. They've kind of pulled the veil back on that a little bit more. So Crucible we have as follows. Starting with the online. November 10th.
So for the featured modes, we're gonna still have Control, Elimination, Rumble, and Survival. Within Survival, and also the Freelance option will both be available still. So if you're solo queuing, you can still do that sweet Freelance.
Not going anywhere.
Option. There will still be a weekly rotator, which will go between Clash, Mayhem, and Showdown. Private matches are still going to be available, and then there will be, the rotating like Iron Banner, and then they're also debuting a new Iron Banner. For this is Iron Banner Freelance. So it says it's similar to competitive, and it will be a smaller
No,
next to Iron Banner.
so much.
So kind of like how the freelance,
Exactly.
the survival freelance is. They don't really give us much info on that, but I'm assuming since it's called freelance, maybe it's for like solo queuers specifically.
I think it's exactly that, and it functions just like how comp now functions.
And then on the weekend, the Trials of Osiris will be continuing.
That's good.
Let's see, there is a note here. It says adept weapons rewarded to those reaching the lighthouse. Return to Trials of Osiris in season 12, and more details are going to come in October about that.
Yeah.
So we will. Oh, more details on functionality to come in a sandbox preview in October. So that's exciting because sandbox needs some work. They need to scoop it out and do some real work.
It needs to be updated. This is actually pretty exciting because this is like something that made the hunt for the lighthouse even more special. Is like you could get the weapons totally functional, totally fine, leading and just be playing trials in D1. And then, but if you got to the lighthouse, that's where you got the adept weapons, where it had a just intrinsic bonus third perk. So you have like in a typical gun, right? You have your barrel, your magazine, and then your 2 perk slots. There's just a bonus intrinsic, super fun like PvP oriented perk that you got from adept weapons. They also had elements to them, which is kind of gnarly. So you could have like a solar scout rifle, an arcane cannon kind of stuff, all in the primary slot. That's the other kind of wild thing about them. So what this means, we don't know. We'll learn more in October alongside the sandbox thing. I am just talking a little bit more about this because I think we're both just fucking jazzed about it. But like hearing that, where it's like in October we're talking about the sandbox, it's just music to my ears on that. I'm just very excited.
Overdue,
yeah,
for sure.
So.
Do you want to go over the
stuff,
or you want to do the games?
No, I'll do strikes. Strikes will take like all of like 2 seconds. So
okay.
They are, and they, if you look at this week at Bungie newsletter, essentially, if you are looking at the TWAP, they give screenshots of like how these new directory things look, and it's a lot cleaner. It's a lot less cluttered and busy. It looks good. But with strikes, they're paring things down, so we'll get the regular strike playlist and the Nightfall Ordeal. That's it. Like that's literally all that's happening. They're taking out the Nightfall, because you can do regular Nightfalls, or you can do the Ordeal, or you can do the strike playlist, or you can do story missions. Like they're just cleaning it all up. It's just strikes and it's just the Ordeal. The Ordeal's keeping its same level structure. Strikes are keeping the same, but they're just that's what's happening. So they're looking to also, this is something interesting here, and this is a little footnote here, they are looking to add adept weapons for strike playlists and strike activities, but that'll happen not in Beyond Light season, but the season after. They're hoping to implement that, and they'll, as that gets closer, be able to talk to us more about that.
Well, let's talk about the hacksaw they're taking to Gambit.
Yeah, so Frankensteinian moves are being made to update and adjust Gambit here.
Yeah, they're gonna be consolidating Gambit and Gambit Prime into one mode, which we kind of like talked about last week, I think.
Yeah, and they mentioned that this has been their plan for it.
So they have their like goals that they're working towards to make the experience fun for players still, and those like 3 goals I guess they came up with is build a more approachable Gambit Prime, keeping the 1-round format with a longer round but without the Gambit Prime armor perks, rebalance the moats phase to the last 2/3 of each match rather than the half of the match, and then speed up the primeval fight compared to Gambit Prime to give more of a feeling of a boss rush.
Yeah.
So it sounds like maybe the rotating envoy damage phase might be reworked. Let's see.
So those are like the design goals that they're trying to nail when it comes to Gambit and its experience now.
Let's see. And since they are getting rid of the specific armor sets that used to give the buffs, they're reworking the bosses and the big blockers and stuff like that, so that they're not as beefy and you don't have to rely on someone having the armor set to be able to take those guys out.
Right.
So that will be nice. Let's see. They they're messing with the moats and trying to figure out like what the best target number of moats should be,
Yeah.
so that you have a good balance between like moats deposited, also moats drained versus.
They don't want to be too long or too unforgiving.
Yeah.
And so
and then this is so funny to me. They're taking the Taken Captain out from the blocker lineup because he was a little too potent for a 10 moat blocker. Yeah, hello.
It's a very it's maybe the strongest blocker to put on the field, not a joke.
So dumb. His fire is so dumb. Everything's on fire.
The blindy balls, the fact that he teleports is like solar shield, like Captain's got a lot.
Oh, I'm thinking of the Knights. Yeah,
it's
it's the Captain. Okay. Still, they all suck, but the Captain is the worst.
The
with
Captain's
teleporting.
absolutely worst. Only for the little price of 10.
They replaced him with a Phalanx guy, which are still a pain in the drain.
Right, but like
not as bad.
I think that's a totally fair substitution. So
no, I agree with that. Let's see.
I totally missed the note on this, but that's it's honestly a huge change.
They're keeping the invasions
just
during the moat phases to 3, just like Gambit Prime. But they pulled back the minimum time between invasions during the moat phases from 10 seconds to 20 seconds. It never feels good to get invaded back to back, which no, it doesn't.
When a team like doesn't invade, or they only invade once, and they stack up the rest of their invades, and then it's like, oh, they invaded, they wiped their whole team with like Xenophage and Golden Gun. Oh wait, here's another one doing the exact same thing. Like literally a beat later, it's like
it's rough, and it's like all the work you did, it's gone. And then this is interesting.
That is exciting.
For the boss fight, they removed the timed Slayer buffs, increased the primeval health and potency of the Slayer buff given when killing envoys. So let's see, we respawn the envoys every 40% damage done to the primeval. So it's damage gated now instead of just time.
For the envoys at least.
Yeah. But so every time you kill an envoy, you get more of that buff.
The buff is stronger. So like the boss is healthier than it would be in regular Gambit, but the buff you get from the like envoy slayer stuff is more potent as well.
Well, and it also, what's cool about this is like a lot of times you can be on a team that like you get your primeval way before the other team, but because of the way they time their invasions, like they still manage to get like their primeval and then DPS it down before you.
Right.
With this,
because
it's saying that like specifically they're doing this because it gives you a chance that even if you are invaded, you can go build up those Slayer buffs again and catch up. And so
it's an interesting idea because like it's a built-in like almost like safety net and catch-up mechanic to being like just shit on by the other team.
And so they said like pretty much the changes they've made makes it so that the new Gambit match will be a time that kind of falls between the original Gambit and Gambit Prime. So I mean, like, I'd say Gambit Prime match is usually like around like 15-20 minutes.
It's like a Crucible match, anywhere I think from like 10 to 15.
Yeah, just depending on if you're stomping or not.
Yeah, or being stomped.
So I think like probably to say like it's gonna be like a 30-ish minute activity, like it's probably a pretty good.
Well, no. It's staying with just the one round too.
No, I know, but it's saying that the length will be between. Was Gambit shorter? Gambit's longer than Gambit Prime, isn't it?
Well, it's because it can go to
up to 3 rounds.
Yeah.
Well, they're just saying that the time ends up being somewhere between those two. That's all. Anyways, it doesn't matter. It's going to be shorter. It's going to be 1 round. It's going to be nice.
Yeah.
We're not going to have to worry about having these crazy armor sets that are outdated and don't support any of the new mods. Okay. Oh, actually, here. It says it right here. This mode will be a little quicker than Gambit Prime, mostly due to the shortening of the boss phase and the removal of the larger bosses from the fronts, but it still gives the great Gambit feeling that you love. So, we'll see.
We all love it.
Saying that we all love Gambit is kind of a stretch, Bungie, but okay, sure. So I think...
this will be the last little note that I'll mention to you. They have officially fixed the bug where you are frozen in place for like 5 seconds after respawning in Gambit. They have fixed it, apparently. I haven't gone into Gambit tested myself. It's a weird bug and it's super frustrating too, especially when like someone's invading, they bop you, and then you get bopped again by the same guy invading because you.
Is it like the one where you're like spawn-in animation?
Yeah, you go in and then you're just like
there.
So they have addressed that, and there's a few other small things too. But these are the main juicy points that we have with this TWAB, and it's once again just really, really exciting stuff. So.
Oh man, can we just fast forward to October? I want to know what they're gonna do with the sandbox so badly. It's just, I'm so pleasantly surprised with like the TWABs. I usually just get like the hey guys, what's the summary from everyone, but like it has been fun to like open it up and be like, what's in here?
It's been really good. It's been really good.
Yeah, so it's been super exciting. Do you have anything else?
No, we have covered it. We are also out of time. We have hit our marker. So
out of time. So I think with that, let's just thank our buds here hanging out with us in chat. You guys, thanks for your input and for tuning in.
Yeah,
really nice.
Zombie, thanks for hanging out. Fo, thanks for hanging out. Brad, thanks for stopping on by. Friends, we really appreciate y'all listening to our breakdowns, our rants, our thoughts, and just sort of being able to share all this. Swift! Hello, bud.
And also, hi, Swift. Thank you.
So.
If you didn't catch this whole episode, just a friendly reminder, you can now find our podcast on Spotify and Anchor and other places. Just search for AFK Conversations. And I'm going to stop advertising for us now, but I think
shameless plugs. No, we're fine. Here to here. Just know. Just know. If you listen to podcasts, you can probably find us there. And if you can't, let us know. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll tell you where to go. And I think with that, guys, we're gonna call it here. So thanks so much, and we hope to see you next time we put the controller down and share another AFK conversation. So we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at AFK Combos, and don't forget to follow Mr. Huckleberry on Twitch so that you can catch our live broadcasts and watch past episodes. And if you prefer to hear our lovely voices in your ear, you can now find our podcast on Spotify and Anchor by searching for AFK Conversations. If you'd really like to show your love, consider becoming a supporter through Anchor.